Nine, 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 nine. Nine, 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 nine. Nine, 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 nine. Nine, 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 nine. Nine, 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 nine. It's nine, 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 nine. It's nine, 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 nine. It is nine, 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 nine. Shalom, shalom, friends. You might recognize that as one of the traditional melodies for Teshuvah, Tzedakah, Tefillah, that our transformation and our charitable acts and our prayers can rip up the harsh decree. Anyways, I wish everyone a Shana Tova and welcome. I know some folks can't join session 1, but we look forward to them joining after. One of our friends here, just a message from the hospital even, he's okay. But we're thrilled that you can make it here to session 1. And we had a little change in plans, which was the original plan was to jump into session 1 today. And instead, last minute, I realized we should really do an intro. We should really start with higher level conversation about what we're trying to do here together for the next year. And I think this has been has not adequately been explored. The field of psychology, the life of the mind, and how Jewish tradition intersects with all those thinkers and studies. And I'm just so excited to dive into this with you, into this 50-part class series. And as usual, let's start with a poll question. Actually, we're going to try to do 2 if we can. We've never done that before, so let's see if we can do 2. And Stan and Cheryl, you'll have to fight over which of you gets to vote. Oh, interesting. They're both in the same. Let's see if this works. Option 1, I am most interested in the field of psychology, behavioral psych, clinical, developmental, social, cognitive. Of course, there's many other subfields, but if you had to choose among those 5, which would you say you're most into? Behavioral, clinical, developmental, social, and cognitive. And then you get a second vote. I believe that psychology and Judaism are fundamentally at odds with each other. Option 2, complement each other well. Or option 3, are separate fields that neither support nor contradict each other. All right, take a few more seconds there to cast your vote. This is the most important vote you'll make in 2024. Just kidding. We have some very, very consequential votes. We hope you'll participate in those on the federal, state, county, city levels and all the propositions involved. All right, let's see our results here. Oh, you don't have the second poll? You only see poll 1? Okay, so that's very weird. I saw both polls. So let's see what happens if we end poll 1 and see the results, and then if we go to poll 2. Okay. Do you all see the results, or is it just because do you see those results? So that's very odd. Okay, in any case, 22% of y'all are most interested in behavioral, 11% clinical, 11% developmental, 33% social. That's interesting, and I think we will spend most of our time there, although certainly not exclusively, and 22% cognitive. I believe Judaism and psychology are at odds with each other. Nobody voted for that. Complement each other well. That's 75%. And are separate fields that neither necessarily support nor contradict. 25% say that. Okay, wonderful. So friends, let's jump in together. And I also want to say that normally we have slides. There's slides, there's images, there's quotes on the screen. And because last minute I decided to move into an intro, we don't have that this time. So I'm sorry about that. But I felt like it was good to zoom out a little bit. So friends, despite being a relatively young field of study, I mean, we might feel like psychology has been here forever. This is a very young field of study. Modern psychology finds its philosophical counterpart in the expansive wisdom of Jewish thought, as we'll see. Across generations, Judaism has delved deeply into the nature of shaping the mind, offering sophisticated interpretations of the metaphysical and natural worlds that go beyond mere description. Though it might seem that the gulf between these disciplines would be too vast, there's been a profound understanding that is not only theoretical, but practical, reflecting a lasting commitment to growth in personal and communal realms. It's no surprise that Jews have been prominent figures in the field of psychology. Figures like Sigmund Freud, Viktor Frankl, Abraham Maslow, Aaron Beck, Martin Seligman, Erich Fromm, Alfred Adler, Lawrence Kohlberg, and Albert Ellis, just to name a few, have all made significant contributions, forever altering how human beings see themselves, the world around them, and the world beyond. It's also no surprise that certain societal forces felt threatened by these transformative ideas. Indeed, in the 1930s, psychoanalysis was even dubbed Jewish science. Right? This is found in a book, the quote on anti-Semitism, Nazism, and psychoanalysis. Yet, despite the contributions of Jewish scholars, there exists a well-documented tension between traditional Judaism and modern psychology. This friction stems from the seemingly opposite core principles. Traditional Judaism emphasizes fulfilling one's obligations, our moral obligations in the world, and contributing to the collective good of the Jewish community and world at large. This focus on duty can potentially clash with psychology's emphasis on individual well-being and self-actualization, a concept that Abraham Maslow explored in his work, as we'll see. Some argue that traditional Judaism might view a preconception with the healing of self as self-indulgent, prioritizing the needs of the community over individual desires, in the latter case. As we'll see, that's something we'll disagree with. Further complicating the relationship are the fundamental assumptions. Traditional Judaism offers a framework for understanding life's purpose and meaning with a divinely ordained world. In contrast, psychology often operates from a more secular and materialistic perspective, focusing on observable behavior and internal mental processes. This difference can create a sense of incompatibility between the two disciplines. Historical animosity wasn't one-sided, of course. Early leaders in psychoanalysis, like Sigmund Freud, expressed hostility towards religion, viewing it as a collective illusion, a, quote, universal obsessional neurosis that provided comfort but ultimately hindered individual growth. However, there's a growing movement within both Judaism and psychology towards a more collaborative approach. Many contemporary Jewish thinkers and therapists recognize the potential benefits of integrating psychological insights into Jewish life, while acknowledging the importance of faith and tradition for emotional well-being as well. Yet, despite the enmity and rhetorical vituperation of some psychologists, the field itself provides a wonderfully expanded map from which to explore humanity's great search for the most elusive treasure of all, the search for meaning. The quest to understand the inner world can be divided into two broad perspectives, the universal and the subjective. The universal perspective encompasses the human experience, how humans across cultures and throughout history have negotiated the unrelenting weight of the world. It's here where psychological, historical, and philosophical trends serve as windows into the broader context of human existence. We delve into questions like, how have people thought and behaved over time? How did they manifest meaning during crisis and chaos? How did they come to find order when there was none before? Identifying recurring patterns in behavior across cultures and eras helps us grasp fundamental aspects of the human condition, universal emotions, motivations, and cognitive processes that drive our actions. Furthermore, probing societal expectations, cultural traditions, and social institutions reveals the dynamic interplay between individual agency and collective norms, showing how these factors influence how individuals think, behave, feel, and relate to one another. Now, that's the universal perspective. The subjective perspective, conversely, excavates the profound realm of the I, the unique experience of being an individual. The focus shifts to personal introspection and self-awareness. We explore questions like, how do we think and feel? How do we manage to understand the seemingly random events of life in this world and make sense of them? What is my role when the thought of existence is too overwhelming? This tension, a very heavy tension, to be sure, involves examining our own thoughts, emotions, and mental processes, a form of self-reflection that encourages us to understand our cognitive patterns and recognize our emotional responses. This self-awareness is critical for personal growth and development into ever more moral beings. Furthermore, exploring how we experience the world and our place within it delves into the individual's perception of reality and sense of identity. This encompasses existential questions about one's purpose, values, and beliefs. The difficult task of habituating ourselves within the broader context of life helps navigate our personal and spiritual journeys. And recognizing how our unique life experiences shape our worldview encourages exploration of how past events, relationships, and challenges influence our current perspectives and behaviors. While distinct, these different senses of meaning are deeply interconnected and woven into the basic fabric of our sense of self. The unyielding study of humanity offers a collective and objective understanding that informs our personal experiences. Conversely, introspection enriches our comprehension of broader human patterns. For instance, understanding historical trends in human behavior provides valuable environmental cues for personal experiences, helping us make sense of our own thoughts and actions within the sizable framework of our day-to-day life. And analogously, personal introspection yields insights that contribute to the collective understanding of human nature, human behavior, and thought. This dual approach has practical implications and applications. By integrating insights from both perspectives, individuals can embrace personal growth. Self-awareness and understanding of one's own mind and emotions facilitate personal development, enabling informed choices aligned with values and goals. Perfect conversation for Teshuvah this week. This approach also improves interpersonal relationships. Recognizing universal patterns in human behavior and understanding the subjective experiences of others can foster empathy, better communication, and deeper connection. Furthermore, awareness of cultural norms and historical trends helps navigate complex social dynamics and contribute positively to communities. Exploring both the universal and subjective aspects of existence enriches one's spiritual and ethical life, providing a holistic approach to living a meaningful and fulfilling life. Right now, self-help still remains a major trend. People want to improve their station in life, their relationships, and their desire to find purpose. Contemporary interest in self-help is not just a fad, but reflects a deep-seated human desire for self-improvement across various aspects of life. We live in a culture of growth, constantly bombarded with information about career advancement, healthy relationships, marriages, and parent-child, and personal fulfillment. Happiness. This fuels a quest for self-betterment, making self-help resources highly relevant. The complexities of the modern world, from demanding careers to navigating family dynamics, can feel so overwhelming at times. Self-help offers practical tools and strategies to navigate these challenges, fostering a sense of empowerment and control. Additionally, there's a growing awareness of the importance of emotional and mental well-being, and these types of resources often address topics like stress management, anxiety, mindfulness, and building healthy habits, aligning perfectly with the focus on holistic well-being in today's world. The accessibility and personalization offered by these types of resources, from books and podcasts to online courses, make them relevant to a wide audience, allowing individuals to find approaches that resonate with their specific needs and learning styles. The sense of community fostered by many self-help resources through online forums, workshops, group discussions, provide support and encouragement on personal growth journeys, making self-help a powerful motivator for sustained change. Looking ahead towards our series together, for each of these classes together, we will explore individual concepts with no single idea dominating. We will examine how these concepts intersect and apply at different times in our lives. It's worth noting the historical hostility at times between traditional Judaism and modern psychology. As we said earlier, traditional Judaism has often viewed psychology as liberatory and thus contrary to its focus on duty and adherence. Early psychologists like Freud regarded religion as a neurosis, as we said earlier. However, there's now a growing respect between both camps. Even in the most traditional Jewish circles, psychological tools are recognized as valuable and necessary. Similarly, in the world of psychology, there's an understanding that good religion can be beneficial for emotional well-being, fostering community, connection, and spirituality. In a world that frequently feels overwhelming and fleeting, religion offers a profound sense of meaning that transcends the secular realm. Amidst the chaos and rapid changes of contemporary life, religion serves as a steadfast anchor, providing stability and purpose. It invites individuals to connect with something greater than themselves, fostering a sense of belonging and peace that is often elusive in today's fast-paced society. Judaism can offer a comprehensive framework for understanding our place in the universe and the purpose of our existence. It addresses fundamental questions of life through its rich traditions, teachings, and narratives. It addresses the Torah and its other sacred texts, provide profound insights into why we are here in the world and what our ultimate goals might be. Jewish teachings help us make sense of life's complexities, offering perspectives on morality, justice, and human responsibility that are often lacking in secular discourse. This framework not only helps us navigate the challenges we face, also enriches our experiences by imbuing them with deeper significance and a sense of continuity with our ancestors. Understanding the why behind the actions of individuals, including the self, is a preeminent question in leading a fulfilling Jewish life. Judaism is more than just going through the motions. It's about connecting with the deeper meaning behind every act. Why might someone choose to keep kosher in some way? Why would someone choose to pray on Yom Kippur? Why do we prioritize ethical conduct over religious conduct? The answers to these questions lie within us, in the intricate workings of our thoughts, emotions, and motivations. This exploration of the internal world can be divided into two key categories. Once again, the universal and the subjective. The first category encompasses the vast realm of human experience, how humans throughout history and across cultures have thought, behaved, and navigated the world. Studying psychology, philosophy, and the historical trends allows us to understand the broader context of human existence, a framework within which we can situate our own unique Jewish journey. The second category, the subjective, delves into the profound realm of the I. How do we come to feel, think, doubt, ask, and triumph? How do we as a species have the unique ability to delve into our innards and find the delicate yet gleaming spark of consciousness and self-awareness that allows us to grapple with the complexities of existence? How do we as people of deep faith, little faith, or no faith at all, experience this vast world and our place within it? Such explorations of existential realities are crucial to a life of growth within Judaism. By understanding our internal landscape, our desires, our motivations, we can make informed choices that align with our values and deepen our connection to our faith. Judaism, of course, is not merely a set of external practices. It's a dynamic conversation between the world we inhabit and the world within. By studying both the collective human experience and our own unique inner landscape, we gain the necessary tools to not only live a fulfilling life, but also have a life that is truly enriched by Jewish practice. It's within the fertile ground of our minds and hearts that the seeds of Jewish tradition blossom into a meaningful and enriching way of life. The structure for our class series is divided into 3 distinct yet interrelated parts for each class together, each one contributing to a comprehensive understanding of the mind through the lenses of psychology and Judaism. Category 1, intellectual biographies. In each session together, we'll begin with a brief intellectual biography of notable psychologists, examining their theories and empirical studies. By exploring the work of figures like Freud, Frankl, Maslow, in session 1, it'll be Skinner, and others, we will uncover the foundational principles of modern psychology. These insights will provide scientific basis for understanding human behavior, mental processes, and emotional health. Section 2 is about Torah and Jewish textual insights. This section turns to the rich heritage of Jewish teachings, rational and mystical, drawing from the Torah and other sacred texts. These will highlight how ancient wisdom addresses the nature of the mind, ethical living, and spiritual growth. By examining key passages, rabbinic interpretations, and philosophical discourses, we will see how Judaism has long contemplated the intricacies of human consciousness and behavior. Finally, in the 3rd section of each session, we'll look at practical applications and personal reflections. This final section focuses on practical implementation of the insights gained both from psychology and Torah. This segment aims to make the theoretical and philosophical discussions actionable and accessible, helping us apply these concepts to our lives. So rather than presenting the material in a strict chronological arrangement, together we're going to adopt a thematic approach. This looser, more free-flowing metastructure allows us to draw connections across time, climate, and context, highlighting the sustained relevance of both psychological and Jewish perspectives to improve the human condition. Throughout this class series, we're going to visit key themes to determine our understanding and explore different facets of each idea. This iterative mechanism ensures that we can appreciate the multifaceted nature of the topics discussed and see how various insights complement and enhance one another. I'm generally going to present for 25 to 30 minutes, and then the remaining 30 to 35 minutes will be conversation for us to discuss together, to ask questions, to share your own ideas, to challenge something I shared. The ethics of Judaism and the ethics of psychology can be complementary. The unbridled scientific exploration of the past has yielded invaluable insights into the natural world. Nevertheless, this era of unchecked pursuit of knowledge has receded into the face of contemporary concerns for ethical conduct. This shift is embodied by the critical role of the institutional review boards, known as the IRBs, for modern researchers. These indispensable entities function as meticulous gatekeepers for researchers and her subjects alike, rigorously scrutinizing proposed studies to ensure that the noble pursuit of knowledge does not come at the expense of human well-being. We're going to see some sketchy studies, actually, which are super interesting, but exploited people in various ways. By meticulously evaluating the ethical dimensions of research, IRBs act as vigilant guardians of participant rights, shielding them from exploitation and undue risk. This oversight not only safeguards individuals, but also fosters a culture of ethical responsibility and accountability within the scientific community. Ultimately, the IRB review process serves as a powerful testament to the primacy of ethical conduct in the ongoing quest for knowledge. Likewise, Jewish ethics are governed by principles such as pikuach nefesh, saving human life, derech eretz, proper conduct, tzedakah, good deeds and fairness. These essential precepts prescribe that any decision, and surely any and all decisions, particularly those affecting others, must be delicately considered to avoid harm. This is somewhat akin to the IRB's role in protecting research participants from harm. Moreover, the Musar movement, which takes great care in spreading ethics and education within Jewish institutional structures, deepens personal development through the dissemination of the most ethical behaviors. Musar teachings motivate individuals to reflect on their actions and decisions, promoting a ceaseless process of ethical self-evaluation and improvement. So while there might not be a direct equivalent to an IRB within Jewish ethics, although rabbinical bodies have their own ethical review boards, just like most bodies do, most fields do, medical ethics and legal ethics and the like. Jewish tradition itself encompasses a robust system of oversight through communal institutions, legal frameworks, and moral principles, all aimed at ensuring actions are conducted with integrity and respect for human dignity. And it's this synthesis of contrasting and complementary morsels of wisdom that this series concerns itself with. Friends, to conclude here, by integrating an academic yet approachable application to understand concepts of psychology, Torah wisdom, and practical life lessons, this series aims to offer a holistic approach towards individuals finding a deep sense of understanding and improving their minds, hearts, and soul. It is this where together valuable tools for a more meaningful and fulfilling life can be shared together. Whether through fostering a sense of community, promoting ethical behavior, or providing comfort in times of crisis, Jewish thought, combined with modern psychological understanding, emerges as a profound source of strength and inspiration. And I'm so excited to explore this journey with you. Let me just say a last thing about process before I open the conversation with all of you. The first is that I'm going to take a less critical approach of some of these studies. Yes, I'm going to share critiques, but some of these studies, like the Milgram study or the prison experiment, or the bystander effect, or so many others, there are critiques of the studies, both of the methodologies and the accuracy, the ethics of them. But in many cases, we're just going to use them as a jump-off point for a larger theoretical conversation. The goal is not to get into the nitty-gritty of the empirical study, but engage the broader ideas. Secondly, I'm certainly never here to try to convince someone of a particular way of thinking or of a particular psychological field as being the dominant approach. My hope is that each of us will find ideas that are meaningful to us and that we'll try them out ourselves. Some cognitive tools, affective tools, psychoanalytical ideas, social study experiments, psych experiments that might be relevant to how we think about society today in all of the political realms, economic justice as it looks towards marriage and parenting and the workplace. And lastly, while I hope this will be intellectually interesting, looking at the history and the science, my goal, more than this being intellectually interesting, is self-understanding and self-growth. That each of us, through the study of psychology and Torah, can pick out some insights that can enhance the way we live our lives. This is what Valley Beit Midrash is all about. VBM is about taking learning and putting it into action. And so my hope is that just as we learn about justice and try to put justice into practice, my hope as well is that we can gain some insights here that we can put into practice for our own betterment or our workplace or our family or our community. All right, friends, right there at 1:30. I'm going to pause, and I would love to hear from you on your questions about the series. If you have suggestions of things you'd love to see covered. We currently have 85 topics that I somehow have to narrow down to 50. And that's a growing list. I don't know I thought 50 was a lot, but it really should be 100, but 50's going to go fast. So, all right, I'd love to hear from you now.
suppose one thing that I would love to hear about, and I know the foundations of psychology and science are definitely dominated by patriarchy, but I would love to hear, even if it has to be, more recent, I would love to make sure we're including women in the discussion as well, even though we were largely absent from, the earlier foundational parts.
Yes, I'm so glad you said that. I'm so glad you said that. And that is certainly crucial. Like in our philosophy series, there's not so much we can do about the earlier stages of modern psychology, given the exclusion of women from these fields and the other kind of barriers and biases and discrimination. But as we get as we progress through the field, we certainly will see that. And I do hope that folks will offer critiques of patriarchal dimensions of modern psychology as they emerge, when things don't resonate. Actually, one class that's already been developed where we specifically do include the critique, where I said we usually won't include the critique, is exactly for that reason, which is the field of moral development founded by Lawrence Kohlberg, who comes to be critiqued by Carol Gilligan, a great psychologist still alive today at NYU, and will explore her book in a different voice, kind of a feminist approach to moral development that challenges Kohlberg's idea. So yes, thank you so much for that. I appreciate that a lot.
I think reflection at this time of year is a good way to start, since the high holidays are here. So
yeah,
it's a good time to begin something like this, an exploration.
Yes. Yeah, I'm sorry, I cut you off.
No, just to begin an exploration like this.
Beautiful, Cheryl. And this is actually a big part of what we're doing here, because I think actually, like, many of us can sit in Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur and we see our friends, we hear some nice melodies, maybe there's an interesting sermon. Actually, it does nothing to improve our lives, or to challenge us to live better. I think this is a significant problem, that Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, I think for most people, don't work. That's why the high majority of American Jews don't attend anymore. Even those who do attend say, oh, it might have been meaningful and I'm glad I went, or I feel it was important to go. But did I actually grow as a person or as a Jew through that experience? And I think a big part of it is that we haven't been equipped with the tools to sometimes understand our subconscious realm. What's actually going on with me, right? To actually have the tools to identify why we do what we do, why we feel what we feel, why we think what we think on the cognitive and affective levels. And then once we have identified it, say, okay, now I see some thinking errors that I have, or I see some toxic behaviors or some unhealthy emotions. Do I actually have any tools to create change around that? And I think the answer is that few of us do. Few of us have the self-awareness, have the psychological insight, and have the tools to create the kind of change we want. And so we make the same mistakes this year that we made last year. And it's tragic. It's tragic that Jewish educators can preach all day about all the moral behaviors we should all live by, but few people can actually make those changes, including the people preaching about it. And that's not just because we don't have the discipline. It's because we often don't have these tools. And so I'm hoping that that can be one of the many benefits here. Cheryl, thank you for mentioning that.
Okay, Shmuly, wouldn't you think that Unatana Tokef is the ultimate psychological prayer? I think it was some years ago, Rabbi Brous was speaking, and she said that she had a congregant come to her, said, every year I come to the services, it's the same prayer every year, it's the same stuff. And her response was pretty automatic. That was, the prayers are the same, but we aren't. And Unatana Tokef is a lot different at my age than it was when I was 15. So I think of that as being a psychological type of prayer.
Yes. Yeah, Stan, thank you so much for that. Just in case anyone's not familiar with that broader prayer. Well, the history of that prayer is kind of tragic. Rav Amnon was forced to convert to Christianity, and they wouldn't, and he refused. And the story or the legend goes that they cut him off limb by limb. They cut his body to pieces, and he still refused to convert to Christianity through that process. And so that history of martyrdom is a big connection to Unatana Tokef. Coming today's October 8th, we're all aware of the brutalities that Jews have lived through for millennia, not to mention this past year. But as we go further, what Stan is referencing, that the second section of the Unatana Tokef, of the notion of who will live and who will die, and who will die by strangulation, and who by stoning, and who by, water, and who by whatever else, and our awareness of our own mortality. Actually, we have a whole session at least dedicated to that with Ernest Becker, and as we look at mortality, and just how deep our consciousness of mortality is to how we live, and how many choices we make each day based upon either a fear of death or an awareness of legacy or some sense of the finitude of our existence. And that is one of the top 5, one might say, motivators or factors that determine how people live. And in some times of life more unconsciously, right? Like teenagers often think of themselves as immortal, but as we age, many of us, whether it's through surgeries or illness or through bad knees or bad hips, start to feel our own frailty more and more. And I think there's something very deep that the creators of the liturgy had in mind in making so much of Yom Kippur about death consciousness. Yom Kippur is about death, right? Traditionally, we wear white shrouds, like the shrouds we'll be buried in. We fast as if we're angels or dead. We'd say our end-of-life confessions like we're about to die, right? There are many other aspects involved. We don't eat as if we're not living, right? Yom Kippur is a meditation on death, not because death is the goal, but we meditate on death so that we can affirm life, so that we can come back and embrace the fullness of life by understanding on the deepest level our mortality. And so I think what Stan is talking about here is at the core of the whole experience of the high holidays. And this Jewish psychological insight that actually looking at our frailty and our mortality head on has a tremendous amount to offer of how we live, as opposed to an approach that looks the other way or is the denial of death, with the name of the book we'll look at later. And of course, this emerges right in the beginning of the Torah. The whole notion of our mortality being interconnected with human choices. So anyway, Stan, thank you so much for sharing that.
Oh, hi, I'm Susan.
Hi, Susan.
Hi, it's nice to meet everybody. So I have a couple things that I'm curious about. I have a book called The March of Folly by Barbara Tuchman. It's about when governments or societies make decisions as a group that are against their own interests, just to be part of the group. I don't know if that's like a subject like with global warming, and how large swaths of people choose to deny it's happening as it's happening. That kind of a thing. I think that would be interesting to explore. And another thing, a book I have is Determined by Robert Sapolsky. He argues that there is no free will. I know it's got to be controversial, but it would be interesting to look at.
Yes, Susan, thank you. Did I cut you off? I'm sorry.
No, that's fine.
Susan, thank you for joining us. We look forward to learning with you. And yes, free will certainly emerge as we look at the modern field of neuroscience and the like. And your first topic, most certainly in social psychology studies around belonging, conformity, group dynamics. And I think we see that in American today. We live in a post-truth era. A post-truth era where, based upon our political allegiances, we have completely different sets of reality and truth. And the assumptions as to what's actually happening at a border, or how vaccines work, or whether climate change is actually happening, or whether the counting of votes was legitimate. Like, we have very few frameworks to actually convince one another anymore that the other group has a flawed understanding. And here I want to suggest that there's three epistemological categories, and we're going to embrace the third category, the highest category. The lowest category I would call relativism, radical relativism, which basically says nothing is true. Nothing is true, and so why study anything? Basically, live as a hedon. Eat, drink, and be merry. Life is about happiness and joy. Just enjoy yourself, because there's nothing worth fighting for. There's no truth worth defending. And I know a lot of people who live like that. Life is about our next vacation and our next martini, right? The second category I would call kind of a radical a radical pluralism, but where essentially everything is true, but in a way that we no longer need to investigate anything or fight for anything either. Okay, Democrats are right, Republicans are right, Muslims are right, Christians are right, Jews are right? Everybody's right. It's all how beautiful it is that we're such radical pluralists that I don't actually have to think about truth at all or choose my own path, because everybody's right. Reform Judaism is true, and Orthodox Judaism is true, and secular Judaism is true, and Black Hat Judaism is true. I don't have to make any decisions about how to live. Right? Now, let me be clear, VBM is pluralistic. That is to say, we find some truth within everything and every camp. But I think my critique here is a radical pluralism where we don't make any choices, or we don't continue learning because there's no need to. Now, the third category that I want to embrace, and that I think is most important here, I'm going to call, although you could call it many other things, evaluativism, which is to say that, yes, there's a relativity to truth in category one, right? We know that. Yes, there's a plurality to truth in category two. But even though those are true, there are still tools to evaluate truth. There are still truth claims that can be made, even given the relativity of truth, right? Even though we don't perfectly or fully know anything, we can still, based upon empirical studies, based upon consensus, make truth claims. I can say that an election was valid. I can say climate science is true. I can say my own theological belief and stand behind it, right? And there are tools to make arguments, right? We should not embrace a totally post-truth era. And so I'm so glad you brought that up, because part of it is that group dynamics can become so dominant that we no longer become thinking beings. We simply engage in a groupthink where we just say what people of our just group say, of what our political groups say, and we stop actually challenging and thinking ourselves. So thank you, Susan. Hi, Sarah.
When you describe Musar's role in all of this, you described it in terms of its ethics. And as I'm studying Musar, it seems much more connected to psychology than purely ethics. As one looks at, does the total reflection that is perfect for this time of year, as we evaluate ourselves and see how we measure as a human being, for me, that's what psychology is all about. And so I'm confused by your definition or your expression of Musar as being about the ethics rather than about the bigger picture.
Right. Yes, thank you so much. I'm sorry?
Can you help me with that?
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm so glad you brought that up, and I agree with you. And I think that when we embrace them as two totally separate fields, psychology is the is, and ethics is the ought. right? Psychology tells us how people think and why people do what they do, and ethics tells us what we should do, right? And one is descriptive and one is prescriptive. The descriptive says, okay, like here's what's going on. You might not have realized it. And the prescriptive, like psychology doesn't try to be prescriptive, at least in its academic form. And I think you're exactly right that Musar is going to engage the descriptive and the prescriptive. That we want to embrace the wisdom of psychology to help us create those spiritual or religious or moral changes in our lives. And it's about much more of life than just some ethical decisions. Living with truth, of course, is in the ethical realm. Living with awe, living with yira, right? Yes, there is a moral side to that, but there's also just a sacred side. There's just a spiritual side to living with a sense of awe. And so I think Musar is the best example of how modern psychology actually influenced Jewish development. Because Musar was directly influenced so deeply by that. Rabbi Yisrael Salanter was very much a student of this. And to be sure, Hasidut, or Hasidism, emerges before modern psychology, but much of later Hasidic thought is deeply influenced by these ideas as well, but in a very different direction. Thank you, Sarah. Yeah, I'm so glad you made that point. Aglaia, hi.
Hey, okay, so I'm kind of a little scatterbrained right now, so I'll just say first, one thing that I wanted to throw out there is that when we were talking about whether or not the prayer is the same every year, well, one thing that I can say that is say, for instance, if I'm reading a passage in the Torah, I might have read it 100 times, and then all of a sudden on the 101st time, I discovered something that I haven't actually, that I didn't notice before. So all the time that it's kind of like reading a book twice. I mean, it's going to be different every single time. If you're, going to let yourself experience it in a different way. The next thing, the other thing that was that I'm thinking about Musar, and I was thinking about Musar and, evil inclination and everything like that, and thinking about Jung and shadow work also. And so, but one of the things that's interesting, if we're talking about, changes in the human, changes within the individual and everything though, well, I mean, there's something to looking at all of those parts of yourself that are kind of not so pretty and everything. And then basically going from there. So I don't know, but it seems like it makes perfect sense, especially if you have been working on looking through this, okay, so I have this, my evil inclination is telling me to do X, Y, and Z. Well, why exactly does it tell me to do X, Y, and Z? And what can I do about that? All of that can change. So I don't know. I'm all over the place. Sorry.
Aglaia, it's always great. You're not all over the place at all, and it's great to hear from you. And we're definitely going to look at Carl Jung, and we're definitely going to look at the shadow work. And I think the shadow work is so crucial. I think right now, America is looking at our collective shadow, our historical shadow, things that are coming up around race and gender and anti-Semitism, various aspects of the history of this country. And that, I feel like America right now is at this crucial moment of doing some of this work, of looking at some of these demons that we've had in the closet. And I hope that we can move beyond the technical of just voting and winning in elections and actually do some of that work collectively, some of the psychological work and social work around figuring out how, as a society, we can heal. The Jewish community as well needs this right now. Things are changing so fast. As we look at October 8th and October 7th, we look at multiple wars and various other things happening. And I think that we have these shadows as well within our own community that emerge from trauma and that we're going to have to wrestle with beyond just hiring more security, beyond just having more weapons. We're going to have to figure out what's going on in the minds, and in the deep recesses of the soul of global Jewry, in order that we can, climb out of this rut as well. Yes, Gary.
Good morning, everybody. Shana Tova. I have to agree completely with what Stan said based upon Rabbi Brous. The question that I have is, can you really have a change by going just twice a year? I mean, if you address your frailties twice a year on the high holidays, and you don't continue in some spiritual growth or some religious growth, can you obtain really a change? Because if you go into shuls today, you see an awful lot of gray hair and not necessarily a lot of young people. So that's always been an issue as synagogues and demographics have changed. So, and I know that you mentioned in the last session last week of your other course, where you said, say, quote, everybody goes to shul, but I don't see a lot of teshuva going on. So I wonder if you could address that.
Yeah, Gary, I would love, that's a great point, and I would love to hear if folks want to engage with that. This whole notion of is 2 times a year enough, or does it work at all? And the age dynamic and those concerns, and what does teshuva look like in the community? Where is it happening, and how is it happening? I think those are really powerful questions, and I'd love to see if anybody wants to engage with those here. And Sarah, interesting point on the side as well. Yes, Aglaya, you want to weigh in on that?
Okay, just to throw this out there about is twice a year enough and everything though. I'm going to I can't speak for other people about twice a year being enough or anything like that though, but I will say this though. I've also met a lot of people who do all of this, they do the religion thing all of the time, and basically it's to, I guess, the way that what I'm thinking is to reinforce what they already have decided that they know, and that's it. So I think that question's a good question. I'm just kind of like, it's a little complicated though, because you could go all of the time and still not be changed, or you can go once and be changed, because it, just depends on what it means to you. So.
Yeah, thank you, Aglaya. And I think many of us are familiar, at least those who are in the philosophy series, of the experience of Rosenzweig, and how Rosenzweig, just a great thinker, just that one experience showing up at Yom Kippur radically transformed the trajectory of his life. And I certainly can relate to that as a kid when I was deciding between a Jewish path and a Christian path. And I say this without any disrespect to Christianity. One of the moments I can point to my own life that pulled me deeper down the Jewish path was the heaviness of Yom Kippur. I didn't want the games. Everyone was trying to make Judaism fun. I would have more fun playing a video game or playing basketball. Like, I don't want to go to synagogue to have fun. I was attracted to the depth of it. Yom Kippur is what turned me on. I wanted the heaviness. I wanted to have a place in my life where people ask big questions, where I could reflect in silence and in community, where I could beat my chest. And I'd go skiing with my friends and go to the movies another time. And so I don't know if that's common, Rosenzweig, and in a different sense, my experience. But it's a profound question. Synagogue works not at all for some people. It works totally for some people, and some people have a complicated relationship. And I'm partially in the camp of synagogues are dead. Like, we kind of, it had its chance for 2,000 years, and now it's time for a new institution that kind of emerges out of the destruction of the synagogue model. I partially think that which is a little radical, and I partially think, no, actually, we can't abandon the synagogue institution, because it offers something no other Jewish institution can offer. Not just prayer, but for type of visiting the sick and of burials and communal celebrations, it has potential still when it's actualized. So I'm not going to take a particular stand on that today, but I think both views are worth exploring. We started this conversation together today, and we're just getting to know each other, and some other folks, as I said, who will be joining, who weren't able to make it today. And of course, if you ever miss one, we'll have a recording available for you if you want to catch up on it. I love the things you shared. I actually have a page to think about based on things you shared here. And I look forward to this journey together, which again is partially intellectual, but much more is about our own life journeys and our own quest to go deeper into our understanding of self and other and of reality. I wish everyone a Gemara Chatima Tova, a meaningful, reflective week, and a meaningful Yom Kippur. And if you're able to join, I look forward to seeing you next Tuesday.